What is a green flag you've experienced on a first date that made you want to have a second date? When my girlfriend and I had our first date, her mom sent her with $50 just in case I made her pay, I guess, and since I paid, she made the waiter cry by tipping him the whole $50. Apparently he was having a bad day. That's so sweet. She appreciates all the small things. Biggest green flag. It's a good song. On our third date we watched a movie at his place. He remembered that on our first date I ordered a Dr. Pepper with my meal and a chocolate chip cookie for dessert. He had Dr. Peppers for me in the fridge and made me homemade chocolate chip cookies. He burned them, but I married him 2 years later anyways. Would you have married him sooner if he hadn't burned the cookies? Gotta level up before the plot can advance. That's just how it goes. We stayed at the wine bar much longer than planned, and we were trying to race to a restaurant for food before places closed. So, I offered her a piggyback ride to run it. Due to her wearing heels, she jumped on, threw her arm forward and yelled onward. We didn't make it to the restaurant in time, but did end up at the nearby diner for a few more hours. Been married just past 3 years now, and leaving for our honeymoon. Finally. Thanks COVID. In 10 hours. Edit. Well, this blew up. Thanks all for the awards. Congratulations. That sounds like so much fun for a date. He took me out for coffee in a place that he made me choose. When I got there, he was already waiting, and the way his eyes shined when he saw me was really adorable. We ordered and played chess. His hand was shaking. It's been a year and counting. That's a long game of chess. Been waiting for this for over a year, if I'm not mistaken, and counting. First date. She was driving us to a spot to go hiking, about an hour's drive. We are talking and talking, but every once in a while we wouldn't be talking, and it just felt so comfortable and not awkward being silent together. Oh man, comfy silence is so underrated. 31 years old, and I've never truly experienced this with a partner. Or maybe I've not noticed fully. How can you tell when it's comfortable? You don't feel like you need to say something, and you don't feel like the other person is judging you for not making conversation. You just vibe. Neither my mother nor my mother-in-law have this ability. My wife and I can just vibe in the same space for hours and it's great. But both our mothers hate silence and need to fill it. It's exhausting. He took me to an amateur stand-up comedy night. He was heartily laughing at all the jokes. They were so bad. So not funny at all. I was planning to not go on another date with him because he obviously has a bad sense of humor. As we were walking to the car he commented how bad everyone was, but he wanted to encourage them, so he laughed at everyone's jokes. We've been married for 12 years now. I've only done one stand-up set, and it didn't go well. But there was one girl in the audience that seemed like she was genuinely laughing at every bit. It gave me the confidence to keep going instead of just bailing in my set. It was an awful night, but I'm thankful to her for probably faking it. Might have been that guy's sister, might have been that guy's wife. Not first date, but the moment I knew I was gonna marry this man. We went grocery shopping. It was about 9 PM. We had both just been paid. The young lady in line in front of us had a very young baby and was paying with WIC coupons and a food stamp card. Her total came to about $22, and she was holding a $20. She looked dejected and put back the one and only thing that was probably her splurge, a candy bar and an energy drink. Other than that, she had baby food, diapers, chicken, rice, bananas, formula, wipes, the bare minimum. I turned around to tell my now husband to hand me my wallet. I didn't have to. He already had his out. Took out a $50 bill, handed it to her, and told her to keep the change. He changed her week. He changed my life. That was the moment I knew he was it for me. I've been looking for a relevant thread to leave this comment because I knew that tender and committed human kindness was going to come up on this thread somewhere. And I knew that my contribution is not nearly at the level that your now husband's was. On my first date with my past girlfriend, she saw someone struggling with a cart at the park we were at. A vendor closing up their food stand for the day, and she got ready to leap up from the grass where we were sitting to go help the person. No hesitation. No questions. No qualms about rudeness towards me, which it wasn't. Nothing. Just this springboard of instant human recognition and kindness. Just then the vendor got her cart over the bump she was struggling with and my ex set back down. But I saw it play out many times after that. If there was a struggle or suffering, she stood up to stand in the gap. She was absolutely one of those people. No questions asked. And she had a gentle humorous way of putting people at total ease so that they would accept her help. That first date, I knew. And I told her about it afterwards. She could not understand why I thought this was so important or why I was so impressed, as the truly good and kind do. But I had spent several years in an earlier time period with a selfish, self-involved, and occasionally cruel man. I knew what the opposite of that looked like. I knew how the opposite of that could twist a person. I knew what it was like struggling myself. And I knew she was a keeper. Because she didn't do it to impress me. She didn't look to me first. She didn't elaborately ask me for permission to excuse herself to go help. She just saw it and jumped up. We eventually split for reasons that had nothing to do with that. But it was, and still is, one of the most important relationships of my life. And her trustworthy human kindness was never and still is never in question about her. Wasn't technically a first date, because we were still just friends. I still consider this one of our first dates. We were sprawled outside on the concrete of his front porch the whole night, sharing our favorite albums together, up for hours. Just listening and talking. I remember feeling so happy. Because we had just gotten close that year. It felt like I finally had the best friend I always wanted while I was growing up. We finally realized how long we had been up when his dad opened the front door to leave for work and was surprised by us sitting on the steps. We're almost 4 years married. I wouldn't have it any other way. He's the best friend I've ever had. That's so lovely. Vibing with someone like that is an amazing feeling. Why is this making me feel emotional? She came to my door and my puppy got excited. Without skipping a beat, she scooped up the dog and asked where the three of us were going. That was 19 years ago. Puppy is gone, but we've stuck together through hell and back. So where did the three of you all go? A 2-hour date that felt like 5 minutes. At the end of it, she made some silly bet with me that she said if she lost, she'd go out with me again. And of course she lost. It was about 8 green flags. She bet on the Jets, didn't she? The goddamn Jets. But I wiped my own ass. I wiped my own ass. I realized I spent most of the date talking about myself. Hear me out. And I've never once had that happen. I'm a very reserved and private person when I first meet someone, which has honestly made dating difficult for years. But he had such a way of asking questions and keeping the conversation going and encouraging me sharing my thoughts, opinions. And he also shared his to everything I said, that when our date was done, I realized I spent almost the entire date talking, which is so unlike me for first dates. I wasn't afraid of him judging me or not liking my response to something. All of his questions were sincere and he seemed to genuinely care about whatever the hell was about to come out of my mouth. I didn't have to think about what to say. It just came out of me, and he met me wherever I was at. Maybe it sounds silly, but it was pretty magical. We still see each other. No, that's really sweet. It's great to be with someone who listens and brings you out of your shell. I asked if she wanted to go to McDonald's and split some fries, because that's all I could afford at the time. She said sure. We talked a long time and split a large fries, and she was so chill about it. She wanted to be with me. Anywhere would have been okay. I knew if she was willing to go out with a broken, struggling me, she would also be willing to build a life with me from the ground up. We have been married 35 years. Through ups and downs. Kids, sickness, wealth and poverty. Amazing story. People who see through all your circumstances to look at the real you are truly special. He made it clear it was a date and that he was interested without it ever feeling creepy or like he was pressuring me for anything. We talked for hours. Went from restaurant to walking up and down the river to my place for a beer. Then I offered for him to stay over, but on a mattress on the floor. I was in a studio with no couch, not in my bed, and he wasn't pushy about anything more happening. The first few weeks he was always sweet and respectful, but made it so clear that he was interested in a relationship. No back and forth or second guessing. And now we are married. Edit. I showed him this thread and now he's super smiley. It's very cute. Congrats. It's fantastic when you can find a good balance between clearly being interested and not being pushy. The date was supposed to just be getting a drink or two. We stayed until the place was closing down, and even then the date wasn't over. We watched Donnie Darko, and he made us cookies. We've been together for almost 10 years, and married for 5. Everyone should have someone they are unwilling to say goodbye to. Love the last line. Pretty cool story. First date with my now wife. Had plans to go to a fancy Italian restaurant. I show up a bit early, dressed as nice as my wardrobe allows. A couple drinks before she gets there. But anyway, she arrives, and we enjoy dinner, drinks, appetizers, dessert, the works. Anyway, when it's time for the check, the waitress comes over and says a person who prefers to remain anonymous picked up y'all's tab and told me to tell y'all to continue to enjoy the night. We were both shocked. I wasn't keeping tabs, but this was an expensive meal we just had. I tipped well, of course, and I thought to myself, the only reason anyone would do that is they say an obvious first date unfolding and thought we were cute / happy / genuine or something. We both felt pretty special. Been married for 3 years. Together for 8. We eventually paid it forward to another young couple years later. Total boss move BTW. Definitely feel good about yourself. Our first real date was someone else's wedding. We got tired of the reception and walked onto the pier to look at the stars. Now we are married ourselves. I hope you had a boring reception and gave another couple a chance. Those are life goals. Let's make our wedding as boring as possible. Random dance at a club. She held my hand after it ended. We were married 24 years before she passed due to cancer. I'm sorry, man. I sympathize with you. I also lost my wife. 6 years gone for me. Never gets any easier.